Welcome back to the channel USA Coins 69, end of the day or counting coins from an old jar in the kitchen, and you come across a penny dated 1982. You glance at it, shrug, and almost drop it back in with the rest. But hold on, because that ordinary-looking 1-cent coin could be one of the most fascinating pieces in modern American coinage, and in some cases, worth far more than just a single cent. Today, let's dive deep into the story of the 1982 Lincoln Penny, a coin that holds secrets, varieties, and a value that might just surprise you. The 1982 penny is one of the most talked about coins in U.S. history because it marks a huge turning point. Up until 1982, pennies were made mostly of copper, giving them a distinctive weight and color. But in 1982, the United States Mint made a dramatic change. They switched the composition from 95% copper to a much cheaper core of zinc coated with a thin layer of copper. This change was made because copper prices were rising so high that making a penny out of copper actually cost more than 1 cent. Imagine that, a coin worth less than the metal it was made from. To save money, the mint transitioned mid-year, and that's where the story of the 1982 penny gets fascinating. Because of this change, 1982 Lincoln cents exist in both copper and zinc versions. The copper pennies weigh about 3.11 grams, while the zinc versions weigh only about 2.5 grams. To collectors, this year became a treasure hunt of varieties. There wasn't just one type of penny produced in 1982, there were several. In fact, you could find a small date version, a large date version, and multiple mint marks, meaning the same year of coin has several distinct varieties, some of which are incredibly rare and valuable. Think about it. 1 year, multiple designs, 2 different metal compositions, and coins struck at different mints. That's why 1982 pennies are such an exciting field of study. A coin lover could spend hours weighing, examining, and comparing them, hunting for that one variety that stands apart from the rest. And it's not just the casual collector who cares. Serious numismatists have spent decades documenting and grading these coins, knowing that even the smallest difference in detail can mean a dramatic change in value. Mint marks play a role too. The 1982 penny might bear no mint mark at all, which means it came from Philadelphia, or it might carry a tiny D beneath the date, indicating it was made at the Denver Mint. Proof pennies with an S mint mark were struck in San Francisco with special care for collectors. Each of these has its own place in the market, but the real magic lies in finding one of those transitional errors, like a rare copper penny where a zinc coin was expected, or a variety with a small date that only a few ever noticed. And then there's the factor of condition. A 1982 penny that has been in circulation for decades, passed from hand to hand, will probably never be worth more than its face value. But one that has survived in pristine, almost untouched condition can bring astonishing amounts of money at auction. Collectors are willing to pay incredible sums for coins that are sharp, flawless, and perfectly preserved, especially when those coins come from such a historically significant year. The 1982 penny also carries nostalgia. For many Americans, these were the coins they grew up with, the ones they used at vending machines, or saved in jars for rainy days. That emotional connection fuels the excitement, because owning one of these coins in rare form feels like owning a piece of personal history as well as national history. When nostalgia meets rarity, the demand soars, and with it, the value. So how do you know if your 1982 penny is something special? First, you check its weight, 3.11 grams for copper, 2.5 grams for zinc. Then you examine the date carefully. Is it a small date or a large date? Does it carry a mint mark? Is it perfectly centered, or do you see a striking error? Each of these details matters. What looks like a simple coin could be a treasure hiding in plain sight. That's the thrill of coin collecting. Every time you pick up a penny, you might just be holding history in your hand without realizing it. And in rare cases, that little piece of history could make you wealthier than you ever imagined. Today, we're going to journey back to the mid-1970s, a time of change in America, and uncover the fascinating history and surprising worth of the 1975 Lincoln penny with mint marks. You may think of it as just another old coin, but the truth is that hidden among those pennies is a chance at a treasure that collectors dream about. The Lincoln penny has been in circulation since 1909, first introduced to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. By the time 1975 rolled around, the penny had already become one of the most recognized and beloved coins in the world. Its design, with Lincoln's profile on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, was already a part of everyday American life. Yet within that familiar design lies the possibility of something extraordinary. Now, 1975 wasn't a year where any big design change was made to the penny. But the significance of these coins comes from the era in which they were produced. The United States was still making pennies from 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving the coins a heavier weight and that rich reddish tone that copper lovers admire. These were pennies you could feel in your pocket, and they carried real metal value as well. But here's where it gets exciting for collectors: the mint marks. On a 1975 penny, you'll notice either no mint mark at all, which means it came from Philadelphia, or a small D for Denver, or an S for San Francisco in the case of proof coins. Each of these carries its own level of rarity and collector interest. Proof coins from San Francisco are especially admired, as they were struck with extra care, polished dies, and attention to detail meant for collectors rather than circulation. They shimmer with a brilliance you don't find in pocket change. Still, even beyond the basic mint marks, there are rare varieties, errors, and high-grade examples that make the 1975 penny so intriguing. Imagine finding a penny that was struck slightly off-center, or one that displays a double die on the date or lettering. These striking mistakes, though rare, add a unique fingerprint to the coin that makes it unlike any other, and collectors are willing to pay top dollar for them. Sometimes, what seems like a tiny imperfection to the untrained eye is exactly what makes a coin so valuable. Condition, of course, plays a huge role. A penny that has been carried around for nearly 50 years, scratched, worn, and dulled, is probably only worth a cent or two. But if you find one in pristine condition, sharp details, full red luster, no scratches, then you're holding something far more valuable. Grading services carefully evaluate these coins, and when a 1975 penny earns a high grade, especially with a mint mark, its value skyrockets at auction. Think about it, pennies are some of the most common coins in America, yet within that massive sea of copper, there are a few coins that shine like hidden gems. Collectors compete fiercely for those examples, knowing that they represent history, rarity, and beauty all rolled into one small piece of metal. And there's another layer that makes the 1975 penny so special. The following year, 1976, was the United States bicentennial, and coins struck in that era carried special commemorative designs for quarters, half dollars, and dollars. But the humble penny did not get a special bicentennial design. Instead, the 1975 penny quietly became the last in line before that historic wave of coinage. That alone gives it a unique place in American coin history. So the next time you come across a 1975 penny, don't brush it off. Hold it up to the light, check for that mint mark, look at the condition, and weigh the possibilities. Because while most 1975 pennies are still worth just a cent, there are rare cases where one of these coins, especially in flawless condition or with a mint mark variety, has crossed into the realm of true treasure. Today, they're small value. But what if I told you that hidden within the ordinary pennies of 1980 lies the possibility of discovering a coin worth far more than you could imagine? That's the fascinating world of the 1980 Lincoln cent with mint marks, a coin that may seem so common at first glance, but carries a history and value that makes it truly unforgettable. The Lincoln cent, introduced back in 1909, was America's tribute to Abraham Lincoln, the president who guided the nation through the Civil War. For decades, the design of his profile on the front of the coin has remained unchanged, making it one of the most enduring coin designs in U.S. history. By 1980, the Lincoln penny had already become deeply ingrained in American culture. But what makes the coins from this year so exciting for collectors is not just their appearance, it's their composition, their mint marks, and the rare variations that set some apart from the millions that rolled out of the U.S. Mint. At the time, pennies were still made from 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving them a rich reddish-brown tone that collectors love. These coins had weight and substance, very different from the pennies you handle today, which are made mostly of zinc with just a thin copper coating. That difference in metal content alone makes pre-1982 pennies like the 1980 issue especially desirable. Each one carries the last breath of a true copper era before the government shifted to cheaper metals. Now, let's talk about mint marks, because this is where the story of the 1980 penny gets even more interesting. If you pick up one of these coins, you might notice a small letter beneath the date on the obverse side. A D means it came from the Denver Mint, an S indicates San Francisco, and if there's no mint mark at all, it was minted in Philadelphia. While millions were produced in all three mints, certain varieties and conditions make some stand out dramatically in terms of value. Proof coins from San Francisco are particularly remarkable. These coins were struck with extraordinary care, polished dies, and mirror-like finishes meant for collectors rather than for everyday circulation. They glimmer with a sharpness and brilliance that ordinary coins simply don't have. High-quality examples of these proof pennies are already collectible, but when they are preserved in perfect condition, their desirability soars. But beyond the standard issues, the magic of the 1980 penny lies in the errors and rare varieties that occasionally slip through the mint's quality control. Imagine finding a coin struck slightly off-center, or one with doubling on the date or lettering, mistakes that occurred in the minting process and went unnoticed at the time. To the average person, these errors might look like minor flaws, but to seasoned collectors, they are golden tickets, transforming a 1-cent coin into a treasure worth thousands. Condition, of course, cannot be overlooked. The grading scale for coins, ranging from poor to mint state, plays a massive role in determining value. A coin that has circulated heavily, worn down over decades of handling, is typically worth only face value. But when a 1980 penny appears in pristine, mint state condition, sharp details, original copper red luster, and no distracting marks, it becomes highly desirable. Grading services carefully evaluate these coins, and the highest grades command staggering prices at auction. What's especially fascinating about the 1980 Lincoln cent is how it marks a bridge between two eras. Just 2 years later, in 1982, the composition of the penny would change forever. That makes the 1980 penny part of the last generation of nearly pure copper cents, a fact that adds weight to its significance for collectors. It represents the end of an era when a penny's metal value was close to its face value, and the beginning of a shift toward cheaper production. Think about this for a moment. Millions of these coins were made, and yet only a handful, in exceptional condition or with unique varieties, stand out as treasures. That's the thrill of coin collecting, the idea that among the most ordinary objects in your daily life, something extraordinary might be hiding in plain sight. Today, we're going to dive deep into the 1981 Lincoln cent, a coin that at first glance might seem ordinary, but when you look closer, you'll realize there are details that make certain mint mark versions incredibly rare and valuable. Imagine holding a small copper coin in your hand, the same kind of coin that millions of Americans used in their daily lives during the early 1980s, yet a single example could be worth a life-changing amount of money. That's the magic of coin collecting, finding treasures hidden in plain sight. The year 1981 is especially interesting because it was the last full year the Lincoln penny was struck entirely in copper before the switch to copper-plated zinc in 1982. This means every 1981 penny has that solid, heavier copper feel that older collectors appreciate. But here's the thing, not all 1981 pennies are equal. Depending on the mint mark, the strike quality, and whether there are any unique errors, the value can jump from just a cent to thousands of dollars. And among them, one very special penny has stunned collectors with its record-breaking worth. When you look at a 1981 Lincoln cent, you'll notice the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner, a design that has been in use since 1909. On the reverse, you see the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was introduced in 1959 and continued until 2008. But the real key to identifying rare versions lies in the mint mark. Pennies from Philadelphia were struck without a mint mark, Denver pennies carry a small D beneath the date, and San Francisco pennies feature an S. Now, while most of these coins are common, certain variations stand out. Collectors always look for proof coins from San Francisco, which were struck with mirror-like surfaces and often preserved in beautiful condition. Some of these coins, especially when graded by professional services at the highest levels, have fetched impressive prices at auctions. But what makes the 1981 penny even more exciting is the possibility of minting errors. Errors like double dies, off-center strikes, or even missing details can turn a common coin into a collector's dream. Imagine pulling out a penny that looks a little different, and later discovering it could pay for a brand new car, or even more. Another reason collectors love the 1981 penny is its place in history. The United States was on the verge of changing the penny's metal composition because of rising copper prices, and that adds an extra layer of nostalgia and significance. Having a 1981 copper cent feels like holding the very last chapter of an era, just before the shift to cheaper materials. That's why demand among collectors remains so strong, especially for coins in pristine condition. Now, when it comes to value, ordinary circulated 1981 pennies are still worth just a cent, maybe a few cents if sold in bulk. Uncirculated examples in brilliant red condition might bring in a few dollars. But the story doesn't end there. High-grade examples certified by grading companies like PCGS or NGC can soar into the hundreds or even thousands, depending on their condition and rarity. Proof versions with deep cameo contrast are particularly desirable among enthusiasts. And then, there are the truly extraordinary finds, the rare mint mark varieties, errors, or exceptionally preserved examples that command jaw-dropping prices when they go to auction. It's amazing to think that out of the billions of pennies struck in 1981, a select few carry a value far beyond what anyone would expect. This is why collectors constantly remind people, never underestimate the power of a single penny. Check the date, inspect the mint mark, and if you think you found something unusual, it's always worth getting it appraised. You never know what kind of treasure might be hiding in your change jar, coin rolls from the bank, or even an old drawer in your house. And here's the part that will truly blow your mind. While most 1981 Lincoln pennies are common pocket change, one very special example, with the right mint mark and condition, has been sold at auction for an astonishing $98,000. Today, in your pocket change, but if you know what to look for, the 1971 penny can turn out to be an incredible discovery. The United States Mint produced billions of these coins that year, and yet, tucked away within this massive mintage are certain versions that collectors would pay extraordinary sums of money to own. The thrill comes from knowing that one of these coins could still be sitting unnoticed in a jar, a coin roll, or even in your wallet at this very moment. The design of the 1971 Lincoln penny remains faithful to the original work of Victor David Brenner, who created the portrait of Abraham Lincoln in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. On the obverse, the familiar profile of the 16th president gazes forward, while the reverse showcases the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959. But while the artwork itself remained unchanged, the differences that matter most to collectors lie in the details that many people overlook. When examining a 1971 penny, one of the most important features to notice is the mint mark. Coins struck in Philadelphia that year carry no mint mark at all, while those struck in Denver are marked with a small d, and coins struck in San Francisco carry an S. Among these, the San Francisco issues are often proof coins, struck with special care and sold directly to collectors. These proof coins, with their mirror-like fields and frosted details, are some of the most visually stunning examples of the Lincoln series, and when they survive in pristine condition, they can be worth far more than face value. But the true magic of the 1971 penny lies not just in its proof versions but also in its famous varieties and rare errors. Perhaps the most celebrated is the 1971 double die obverse. On some coins, the inscriptions, "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," appear with dramatic doubling, making them jump out to the naked eye. These coins were created due to a misalignment during the die-making process, and only a small number of them ever reached circulation. Collectors prize these double die errors, and they have sold for thousands of dollars depending on their condition. Imagine pulling out a penny from your change and noticing that the letters look doubled. Suddenly, you could be holding a fortune. High-grade examples also play a huge role in the value of the 1971 penny. Because so many of these coins were produced, most of them were quickly worn down in circulation. That means finding a coin that has survived in flawless, uncirculated condition is incredibly difficult. Professional grading companies evaluate these coins on a scale, and only the very best, those that achieve grades like MS-67 or MS-68, become highly desirable to collectors. It's in these top-tier conditions that the coin's value skyrockets, often leading to astonishing auction results. There are also lesser-known varieties and errors to look out for. Off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or coins struck with weak details can all command serious interest from collectors. Even small differences in strike or toning can make one 1971 penny far more valuable than another. Collectors love these unique quirks because they represent mistakes that slip through the careful processes of the mint, making each one a piece of history unlike any other. What makes this story even more fascinating is the historical context. In the early 1970s, the United States was facing economic shifts, inflation was rising, and copper prices were beginning to influence coin production. Every penny from this era carries with it the weight of those economic changes. For collectors, owning a 1971 penny isn't just about the coin itself, it's about holding a tangible piece of American history from a decade of transformation. Now, while most 1971 pennies are worth just 1 cent or maybe a few cents to casual collectors, the exceptional pieces, those with rare mint marks, dramatic double dies, or preserved in perfect condition, are the ones that can change a collector's life. Auction houses have seen bidders compete fiercely for these coins, driving prices to staggering heights, and here is the most incredible part of all. Out of all the 1971 Lincoln cents that were struck, one very special coin, with its mint mark, rarity, and impeccable condition, has been sold for the unbelievable amount of $78,000. Do you want me to also make a YouTube description with emojis and SEO-rich keywords for this script so your video gets the maximum reach?